You're very welcome back. We are joined now by Roisin Fitzpatrick, who has written a book called Taking Heaven Lightly. Roisin, you're very welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. Delighted to be here.
Take me back to the day after your 35th birthday. What happened?
Day after my 35th birthday, I was at home on my own and I stood up and I turned my head and suddenly I had a blinding, excruciating headache and my neck was wrenched backwards in a severe spasm and I started to get hot and cold sweats and feeling very nauseous. And then when I began vomiting, I began getting weaker and weaker. So I called the ambulance because I knew I was in a very serious situation.
Were you alone in the house?
I was, yes. I guessed it was a brain hemorrhage, but obviously I'm not a medical doctor. I couldn't be sure, but I knew it was a very serious situation. So I managed to stay conscious and get myself down the stairs and to the front door and open the front door, but I was on my knees by the time the ambulance man arrived.
So then you came, they brought you to the hospital, they transferred you to Beaumont, and then you had neurosurgery, is that right?
Well, what I was told was when I arrived in Beaumont Hospital, the doctor said to me that they confirmed that I had a brain hemorrhage.
Yes.
And with a brain hemorrhage, there is obviously a lot of associated risks. Some of them, like I could have died, or there's a very high risk of having a stroke and being paralysed.
Right, yeah.
And there was more than likely that they would need to perform neurosurgery the following day. So it was a really terrifying situation to be in because I'd been in the whole of my health before then and I wasn't thinking of dying. I was too busy living life. And suddenly to find myself...
You were young as well.
Yeah, you know, full of life. I mean, I used to salsa dance, you know, until 3, 4 in the morning, not a bother on me. And suddenly I found myself in a life-threatening situation in the ICU unit in Beaumont Hospital. And I remember, you know, looking at the fluorescent lights and, you know, hearing the clanging and clattering of the metal, you know, from the trays and the trolleys. There's something about hospitals and metal sounds, I don't know. And just feeling so terrified and daunted and overwhelmed. You know, like, is this it? Is my life over?
Is this when you had your near-death experience before anything else happened? You were in the ICU, almost like they were waiting to see what they were going to do with you next.
Yeah, that was the plan for the following day. And yes, I remember lying there and it was like
What happened?
And I saw the most beautiful radiant light. And at the same time, I felt embraced by a love that was so pure and unconditional. It was like nothing I'd ever experienced before. And a profound, profound sense of peace and serenity. And it was utterly blissful.
So you were lying in the bed,
sublime.
Really worried, saying, OK, I'm 35 years of age.
Is this it?
Is this it?
Yeah.
Have I come to the end of the road? And it was just like a switch.
Yeah.
Did your heart stop though? I mean, how did you die and then come back? Did people come like ER and start, you know?
I know what you know. And that's actually a great question because a lot of near-death experiences, you know, the research initially when it was set up by Dr. Raymond Moody over 40 years ago when he wrote his book Life After Life, he was actually in the A&E unit. So the people he was interviewing had heart attacks.
That's right,
so it seems to be associated with people who have heart attacks.
They flatlined, yeah.
Yeah. But I actually went to see Dr. Bruce Grayson, who's the leading medical expert in this field for the past 40 years. He's actually worked with Raymond Moody. And he said it's in a life-threatening situation. So somebody, for example, could be nearly drowning, or they could be in a car crash, or it's some situation where you're literally on the edge. You're on the edge of life. And that's when you can have a near-death experience. And it's like as if your consciousness leaves your body.
And did the doctor say afterwards that your heart did stop, or what happened? Did they confirm that you had died for a certain amount of time, or were you just there in the ICU?
I was there in the ICU, but I had this near-death experience.
Okay, right.
Yes.
Without any heart stopping?
Without any heart stop or anything like that. And that's, you know, it's a life-threatening situation. That's where you can have these near-death experiences.
You were part of Colm Keane's research as well.
That's right, yes.
Colm was in probably 2 weeks ago now, and he described one person he spoke to that I suppose the soul in one sense came up over and saw the body, the physical body below with, I think it was mom and dad on each side. Anything like that? Yeah,
it can be experiences like that. The one that I actually had, I had an out-of-body experience when I was in my 20s, but at that stage I was working for the European Bank and, you know, I couldn't comprehend anything like that because I didn't have a larger perspective on life. So I wasn't able to understand that at the time. But I think it was a precursor to prepare me for what would happen a decade later when I had this near-death experience. So I was actually gone. I went straight through to the light.
How long do you think you were out of your body?
You see, that's the great thing, because you're in that incredibly blissful, vast, timeless expanse. So there's no sense of time, there's no sense of space, and it's absolutely and utterly blissful. So, and this is where we were mentioning earlier, I learned when I was doing the research for this book that one of the Gaelic ways of saying may you rest in peace is Sola Shiri,
yeah.
which literally means the eternal light, and that's what I connected with. And I realised that this is the deepest truth of each and every one of us. We're always part of this eternal light.
So you weren't a religious person before this?
No,
you were an atheist practically, but...
I would have been, in my 20s, I would have been an atheist. I didn't believe in anything. I'd started to open up to the possibility that there was a bigger perspective in life. But my goodness, after the near-death experience, it's totally like the blinkers came off.
Is it like God? Do you think you went to heaven? Or, I mean, you know, Colin Keane again, you know, people believe they see God, they see this person that is God or whatever you call superior being. Did you feel like that?
I did. I had, part of the experience was like that, where I felt literally that I was held in the palm of this incredibly large, benevolent, kind and compassionate hand. And it felt like a supreme being of sorts. But the main part of my experience, though, was really connecting with this profound sense of peace and profound sense of love, and recognising that this is the deepest truth of each and every one of us. And it's like as if when we're born, we just put the coat on of, you know, a little bit of skin and muscle and bone. And then when we die, we take it off. But we're always part of this eternal light before we're born, during our lifetime and after we die.
When you came back, because you describe it so well, right?
Oh, thank you, thank you.
When you eventually came back to life, if you want to put it like that, were you saying, oh my God, the other place was great, why am I back here?
Trust me, yes. Yeah, it was. I must admit, it was challenging. I came back at the time because my parents were alive, and my mother's greatest fear was to lose one of her children. I mean, you're both parents. I mean, it should be your greatest nightmare. So I came back because of that. But there were times, I must admit, it has been challenging where I think, my goodness, it was so blissful. But the challenge is actually to connect with this light and live with that light in this world.
Do you think you were sent back?
I actually made the choice, but I know some people go so far and then they're sent back. If I'd continued further, I might have been sent back.
So did you consciously, do you remember consciously making the decision to come back?
Oh, yes.
Okay.
Yeah, because it was utterly blissful, and it was so difficult to separate. And I remember being part of this vast expanse of blissful light and thinking, how is all of this going to fit into that tiny little body? And I just didn't know how it was going to happen.
But you've changed a lot. Like, you changed your job. You know, you had a really good job. You were working for the United Nations. Then you worked for you worked for the European Commission. You worked in lots of really high-powered jobs. And you decided to become an artist and make glass. We actually have footage of you working as a result of this.
Yes, I'd actually already started to move away from that, but after this experience, I wanted some way to be able to share the beauty of the light that I experienced. And there's a beautiful quote by George Bernard Shaw, where he says, you use a glass mirror to see your face, but you use art to see your soul. And I wanted to create this art as a way of being able to express the beauty of the light that I experienced, so people will be able to tap into their own inner light and connect with the light in this world.
Now, when you came back, were your parents alive at the time?
They were, yes.
They were. No, and you told them, that, like, initially was it, oh my God, she's back from the dead? But obviously when you explained everything to them, did that make it easier for them, I suppose, then when they get older and stuff?
It made such a huge difference, Dahi, and that's a great question, because both of my parents passed away at the end of 2010.
Yeah,
10 weeks apart. They were married nearly 53 years, and when my mother died, my father literally was heartbroken. Had a heart attack 10 weeks later. And it was one of the greatest gifts from this whole near-death experience is that I've absolutely no fear of death. And I was able to share that with both of my parents when they came to a time when they were vulnerable in their own lives. And to be able to give back to your parents is such a joy, because it's a one-way system. You give everything to your children, but to be able to give back, that was just so wonderful.
Do you look forward to dying?
Ooh, I'll tell you what, I look forward to living.
Oh, that's good.
Because really, I realise that there is no such thing as death. We're always part of the eternal light.
Do you look forward to passing into the next life?
I do, but I want to absolutely use this life up first. I have an aunt who's 97 years of age, and she always says, life is so short, dear. Make sure you live a long and happy one. And that's really my intention, to, connect with this light and live, the most beautiful, bright light, be the brightest light I can be on this earth.
Be a better person, isn't that what you're basically saying? And that's what you say in the book, that you believe we should be better people and connect and all that. I mean, that's what is that not what you're trying to do as well? A little bit through your art as well?
Yeah, well, it's really about encouraging people to connect with the possibility that there might be more more to life.
Okay.
And when we can open up to that possibility, then we actually receive more in life, because when we can connect with this light, our life automatically becomes better. We can transform our lives from being ordinary to becoming quite extraordinary when we connect with this light. And automatically we become happier, we become more heart-centred, and then that radiates outwards.
Your book is doing great at the moment. It's number 3 in the Irish chart at the moment.
Which is absolutely brilliant.
And you are signing books this weekend, is it?
That's right, yes, in Hodgesvig. It's just off Grafton Street.
What time?
At midday. Midday, yeah.
We should say as well, your art, your lovely glass art, Deepak Chopra, great guru of life, is a fan.
Yes, Deepak Chopra has my work, and it's been amazing. I'm on my 11th exhibition now in America, and I have to pinch myself. Every year? I do, yes. I would have about, maybe 2 exhibitions a year.
That's great.
And it's been wonderful. It's been so well received there. But it's lovely now to be able to share it through this book as well, though. That's actually been a great joy. So people don't have to buy big pieces of art. They can just
you buy a book and off
buy
you
a
go.
book, exactly. And also as well that in the book I share different ways for people to connect with this light in their own lives. That's the key. That's what's most important.
Thanks very much, Roisin.
We have 3 to give away.
Fabulous.
So if you go to our Facebook page, all the information's on there. So we have 3. We're going to get you to sign them as well.
That's my pleasure. Thank you.
Thanks, Roisin.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for having me.